Hey, this is Rob with Old Guy Tech TV, Opinion versus Opinion, and today is May 21, 2014, and with me is Jonathan Charney and John Manajastic, and it's a cool 68 degrees today in Diamond Springs. Wonderful day, and it won't be that cool for the upcoming holiday, unfortunately, but it's nice right now.
Maybe it'll do the lightning and thundering like it was last night.
Last night was lightning and thunder, yeah.
We had that residual in Southern California today. We have had overcast, but not a drop of rain in the San Fernando Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am actually coming up this weekend, and it's supposed to be hot.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. It's going to be hot, hot, hot. So I just wanted to bring up this whole net neutrality situation is still bouncing around because there's a lot of infighting going on.
It's
on this
dead.
thing.
Wave the flag.
I wish it was. I wish I could say that net neutrality is dead. Unfortunately,
Why do you wish
if
you could
there's
say it
money
was
to be
dead?
made,
Net neutrality is a good thing.
yes, but if there's money to be made, they will find a way to gouge you in every opportunity they can.
It's the American way.
And it's the American way. And last week, the FCC voted to rewrite the net neutrality rules, which keep internet providers from blocking or slowing access to certain websites. A federal court struck down that rule earlier this year. The proposal would, for the very first time, allow internet service providers the ability to pay for priority treatment. So we're going to have tiered structure on the internet. If we don't tell these idiots that, no, we don't want this, go away.
Well, we tell them, no, we don't want this quite often, and that doesn't seem to stop them.
No, it doesn't.
Not only on the federal government level has, and this is one of my stories for the week, boys and girls, but Comcast and AT&T have merged for $48.7 billion.
Wait, AT&T and Comcast?
AT&T after
AT&T and DirecTV.
DirecTV. What did I say?
I said Comcast.
God, I hope that doesn't AT&T and Comcast don't merge. Holy crap! Two crappy surfaces into one.
Productive to both of them, but DirecTV, which I think all of us would agree, probably provides the best TV signal that you can get from anyone.
Yeah.
But was sorely impinged by the fact that they did not have their own internet provider. Well, now net neutrality becomes maybe because there's some competition, that there are two giant megas now to fight it out. But we are certainly not in a marketing model that says give them something for nothing to get them to do business with you.
Yeah.
And prepare.
Well, it does. It's give them something for nothing for a little while and then goose them back up again.
And prepare for your DirecTV prescription or subscription to go up. I guarantee it's going to get ridiculous.
Well, here's what's going to happen. They're going to go back to the bundling package, and I'm not giving up my Verizon to go back to AT&T for nothing. I am a DirecTV customer, have been since almost their inception, and I'm going to be severely upset with them, but I don't have any choice. I'm not going to Dish. It's a far inferior product. I know a number of people that have it and hate it, so it really irritates me.
And the other part is, unlike everybody else in the city, we can't go back to a traditional antenna because the new digital signals don't reach this far.
Yeah.
There's no repeaters either.
There's no way for us to get
free
air.
It's either this or be cable cutters, which is another reason why DirecTV and Comcast are actually having issues and switching to internet-based stuff.
Well, yeah, and I mean, so DirecTV just announced no wires. Their worst ad campaign to announce that they've ever come up with the puppet who gets caught, and there's another one with and there could have been. I mean, there are 1,000 more creative ways you could have approached that.
The worst part about the wireless thing is they don't explain what. I want to know what frequency it's on, because if it's on 2.5 or 5 point something, that's going to interfere with Wi-Fi, can interfere with cell phones. This is going to be ridiculous.
I think they probably engineered it to not interfere, because you got to realize AT&T already has this wireless system. So they adapted something. It's as innocuous. But the problem with net neutrality is when you talk about there are now two companies that basically own the internet. Who are you going to go to if you don't get it from
Right.
Comcast, Time Warner, or from AT&T DirecTV?
Well, there are smaller companies in areas, but generally all you people get it's either Comcast or AT&T.
Well, and don't forget that
Next
everybody
one-
gets
next one
their
that really squeezes like HughesNet. That
yes,
provides satellite out there in the hinterland.
and we had it, and it sucked. But we
We
had
had the racetrack, and it really sucked.
yeah, it's not good. It's not a good solution. But don't forget also, guys, that everybody's on a similar backbone because oh geez, I forgot the name of the major fiber company. Not Com. It'll come to me. OC3, OS3. Oh well. Anyway, there's basically two major long haul fiber companies out there that really handle all the traffic everywhere.
And I bet
Everybody's
Google
hooked
has
to
more
them.
bandwidth than they do.
What's that?
I bet Google has more bandwidth than they do.
No, these are the big boys, and you don't hear a whole lot about the big players because they get money from everybody that ties into them at all, and that's all of us. They make
They're
money
probably
from
a volume wholesaler.
yeah, and so that's another issue unto itself that may rear its ugly head as well.
And the other thing is a lot of municipalities have been trying to have tried to actually make internet. So they've tried to lay cables and all that, or do Wi-Fi networks, and then AT&T, Comcast, whoever sues them, or passes a law saying it's illegal for a county or state to make their own internet. So it's only advantaging them, which actually has happened.
Yeah, none of that surprises me. But like you said, Google went into Kansas, one particular town, I can't remember what it is, laid fiber to every single building and house in that city and provided them with just huge bandwidth.
Well, because they have more dark fiber than like 95% of the country, because they bought all the dark fiber from the original .com bubble.
Communication 3. That's it. That's the company. Anyway, this is not a good way of going that I can see, and that goes back to when we talked about kind of the FCC is a lion without teeth. There isn't much that they can seem to do anymore. I have a hard time believing that, okay, let's let these two big, huge companies merge is a good thing.
Well, it doesn't help that the FCC chairman is an ex-cable lobbyist.
Well,
but you know who the FCC chairman was before that?
Colin
Powell's son.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Under W, and many not good things happened to the FCC.
Yeah, I mean, that was a little bit of, hey, thank you. How about here's a position for your son?
Right.
well, his son was also ill. There's more to that backstory.
Well, yeah, but it seemed like one of those. Thank you for going along with me, Mr. Powell. Here's a position for your son.
It's definitely nepotism. There's no doubt about it. But it's called honest graft. It's something. I mean, if civil servants did their job as they're supposed to a certain extent, there is a little bit of honest graft and nepotism that goes on. And it's sort of kind of the way it is. But now it's just like not a little bit. That is the case. Graft, nepotism, and corruption goes on while, qualified people like Jonathan and myself sit around with no jobs.
Yep.
Well, because qualified people, they'll just say, screw it, I can make more money. Or the only thing I could think of where they do good things or do different is the Supreme Court justices, because most of them have been appointed by conservative Republican people, and some of them, even though they were put in by conservatives, are not necessarily have the conservative record, which is the only group of things I can remember that do that, because they don't need anybody after they're elected.
You have a couple of down the middle in the 9, but
which I actually think is probably the better way to go.
Scalia and Thomas are a group unto themselves. Kennedy's the swing vote. Roberts goes, who knows?
Whoever pays him the most money.
The Supreme Court, from Citizens United on, has just kind of They just want more money in politics. They just want, talk about taking away your rights. They've taken away your franchisement rights to vote by allowing it to be totally influenced by money.
God,
And it doesn't. They can spend as much money in as many different ways as they want, and this all resolves back to my constant argument. And the only one that's making out on the deal is media.
God,
They're
more money in
getting
the
paid all the money.
Yeah.
more money in the
Obviously-
politics. Holy crap!
Obviously, if AT&T, like they're hurting for dough anyway,
Yeah.
can just pick up DirecTV. It was originally $50 billion. It ended up being 48 and change. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of tokens. And the problem is those kind of purchases do not trickle down to the working class and the economy.
No.
So
That's
I-
all.
They might have to hire a few more people in Singapore to handle their tech
Customer
support.
service, yeah.
And
But-
that's but I think DirecTV brings 20 million more customers to AT&T.
So I have something. If you want to switch over to topics, I actually have two things, and
Oh, good.
one of them is
We beat this horse to death already.
one of
so-
them is one. I don't know if you guys have read. Ever heard of a company called LavaBit?
Yes, I have.
This is the company that was secure private email. This is the company that Edward Snowden was using that shut down. And this is scary. This is literally taking away rights. This guy, one of the things he did is that this guy wanted to get a lawyer, but he couldn't tell the lawyer anything. He couldn't tell him why. So no lawyers would take him because he could not speak to a lawyer about why they needed him.
Who couldn't speak to a lawyer about why they needed him?
I
Yeah,
don't.
give us some more of the story.
There was
'cause I don't
I
understand.
can't find the guy's name. I think it's Ladar Levinson, but I wouldn't quote me on that. The guy who owned LavaBit was basically sued because of Edward Snowden,
Sued by.
the U.S. government. He was
Okay.
taken into a secret court.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And this. So let me give you a little reading. Let's see. What ensued was a flurry of legal proceedings that would last 38 days, ending not only in my startup, but destroying bit by bit, but the very principle which I founded it, that we all have rights to privacy. In the first 2 weeks, I was served legal papers a total of 7 times. It was contacted by the FBI every other day. It took a week for me to identify an attorney who could adequately represent me, given me the complex technological legal issues, and were in contact for less than a day when the agent served me with a summons, ordering me to appear in the courtroom with 1,000 miles away from home. 2 days later, I was served with the first subpoena for the encryption keys. And this goes on basically saying that they went out of their way to hamper him. He couldn't talk to a lawyer. He couldn't exactly tell him why. One of the instances, the lawyer was not even able to be there. And everything, he could not say
Is it because
anything.
of some kind of deep government secrets
It's
or
the
something?
secret court. If you're summoned to the secret court, your rights don't really exist there.
This is what, like a Gitmo type of thing?
No, that's a secret
Yeah,
court.
I'm wondering where under the Constitution you have the right to convene a secret court
Well, that was the
outside of a grand jury.
You know what secret court I'm talking about? I don't remember the name. It's the one where a lot of the wiretaps, they do the wiretap, then they go over there. That's the secret court.
There, within the Congress, there is a committee that acts like I think what you're talking about, a secret court. They're involved with national security, and only people with high clearances in this committee can attend it. And they do have congressional subpoena power.
Here's another part too.
Right.
And what they wanted is they wanted his encryption keys. They basically wanted a back door into everything, and he said that it doesn't really work that way. And he made an automated system to handle some of the requests, and the government said, oh, okay, since it's automated, you don't have a right. Give us everything. Because it's not a single person handling all the requests, it's automated. That fourth constitutional protection does not count.
Because it's automated.
Exactly.
Interesting. Well,
and
Zimmerman learned his lesson. I mean, that was, if you remember, that's PGP.
Yeah.
That Zimmerman was the guy who wrote pretty good encryption, and the government took him to task because they had one hell of a time trying to break into his encryption, because it was 128-bit encryption at that time. Now we have 256-bit encryption, which makes it almost virtually impossible, even to a certain degree for the NSA. But anyway, go ahead.
So here's the part that really pissed me off. The federal judge entered an order of contempt against me without even much as hearing me. But the judge created a loophole. Without a hearing, I was never given the opportunity to object, let alone make any substantive defense to the contempt charge. Without any objection, because I wasn't allowed a hearing, the appellate court waived consideration of the substantive question in my case raised, upheld the contempt charge on the grounds that I hadn't disputed it in court. Since the U.S. Supreme Court traditionally declines to review decides on wholly procedural grounds, I will be permanently denied justice. In the meantime, I had a hard choice to destroy something that I had devoted 10 years of my life on.
Wow.
I mean, this guy was royally screwed.
Is there more than one source on this story?
This is the only one I've found on it, and it's The Guardian, which isn't too bad. I want there more, and unfortunately, I'm not representing it the best I can, but it sounds like the government went out of their way, because this had to do with Edward Snowden, to basically stop this guy from doing what is required under the law. Because national security, his rights were violated.
I believe under the agreement that Zimmerman had to agree to, and again, this is the guy that wrote pretty good encryption, I think it answered some of the questions about what you can do and can't do with encryption. And some of it has to do with the fact that the government says any encryption being written by these companies, that they must have a back door.
Well, here's the thing. This is the way a lot of these work now. Is the companies don't even have, like, if I remember correctly, this guy didn't even have any of the actual passwords to decrypt it. What it is the person who has the email address has the password. That's the encryption key.
Right.
Therefore, he can't actually decrypt it, if I remember correctly. I don't remember exactly
So the
how
messages are sent in the clear, but then there's a key that's sent. That's the same way PGP works.
Yeah, the messages are sent encrypted.
Okay, let me back up. You get this message in the mail that says XYZ sent you an encrypted email. A key will be sent. Within that email, that first email is actually the encryption key. A second email will be sent, which then you unencrypt. It's a two-part thing. You have to have both parts for it to work.
Yeah.
Right. So. I don't know. It doesn't. I'm not going to say I'm surprised anymore, because we've already seen it happen in this country, where the NSA, if they cannot get their foot into things, they force their way in.
And the other thing is because it was so encrypted, they didn't know what is what, so they wanted to basically have like a master key, so they got to read everybody's email.
Exactly. That's what happened with PGP too. They wanted a back door. So let me ask you this question then. He's published this. He's told his story, but what does he expect now?
My guess is done not much, because his business is closed.
Right.
And I'm surprised he's allowed to say this much.
Well, so that begs the question. That's why I asked that. I mean, at this point, I guess it's good to know that about this, but it's not a surprise to anybody, I don't believe. But where in the Fourth Amendment would this lie? Where in the Constitution does it say that you can't write an encryption program and have the ability that the government can't read your documents?
But also don't forget, if I remember correctly, the government, the NSA, I don't remember, there's a group, a standard, who has to do with encryption keys and all that. And then the government kind of said, why don't you make it a little weaker so you can do this and do this. I think it's called RSA, but I wouldn't quote me on that. So even some of that's being reviewed because of the weakness that was allegedly built into some of the encryption. So I don't know. It seems like if you encrypt something, you're guilty. I know if you cross the U.S. border and you have an encrypted hard drive, I think you are required by law, if they ask, that you must give them the key, or go to jail or something like. It's something really like Orwell's like, oh shit.
Yeah, that's back to this whole thing on the no-knock warrants and many other things that the government now seems to have the ability to do, which completely tramples on your constitutional rights.
And here's the reason, the weirdest thing, and excuse me for interrupting, because I was thinking about this, is because of technology and the way the laws are never catch up to technology, that it's not illegal for them to hamper your rights because your rights apparently don't exist in technological reasons. If you have a laptop, they can take it because it's not against the law for them to pry into that because there's nothing specified they can't. I mean, that's the way it seems like. I mean, what do you think, John?
Well, the encryption issue, long time issue. Since I haven't read this story, I am at a loss because I have no background in it.
It is on my Facebook page.
And it's verging on your techie level, not mine. You know, I'm not thrilled about anybody saying you can't do that, or you have to let us into that. I have to read some more about it to really have an opinion and be honest about it.
Because I would be curious on your opinion, just as somebody, I guess, who's a historian. I can send you the article. But to me, it's scary that this guy was basically told by the government, it's okay, go away, you don't have rights, and this is scary.
That's why I have to read the story.
Yeah.
Without having a knowledge base in it, and no offense, Jonathan, there's some points where you just go, well, I'm not sure about that. Well, it's kind of.
Well, no, you're right.
Therein hangs it in the details.
Oh no, you're right. I did a poor job in representing it.
I think what you represented the best was the theoretical possibility. In other words, it seems that if the government cannot have access, in other words, if you can encrypt something so strongly that they don't have an ability to break into it. This has been an ongoing thing for at least 10 years where the government is saying, no, we have a right to be able to read all your mail, just like they can get a subpoena actually to get the mail that's put in your mailbox,
right,
and read it if they wish.
And actually now they're thinking sometimes getting subpoenas to get everything on the computer isn't as fruitful in criminal examinations as they think it might be.
Yeah, because a lot of people have gone back to pen and paper. They're not, they're learning that, and the bad guys are learning that maybe being online and putting everything online is not necessarily the smart thing to do.
My favorite is
I learned to do that because I happen to know that I feel we have been waylaid by convenience into giving and setting and satisfying for mediocre performance, customer service, etc. And the computers know.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
I mean, come on. Where is the manual override? And that, I think, is what Hawking said in the last 2 weeks, where he goes, don't give it all away. And you may already have put too much power in the machines.
I will say, ladies and gentlemen, if you're curious on the case Rob was talking about, look up Phil Zimmerman. He's a guy who wrote PGP. Give it a quick Wikipedia search. It's pretty disturbing what happened to him because the government had no idea how to get into it because how well PGP works. Look it up. It's a little scary.
Yeah, it's interesting how his story and the poor guy. I mean, he finally gave in. I mean, his whole life was a wreck. He didn't want to, and I can't say that I blame him. I would have said, fine, I'll let you have the key to hell with it, because he didn't make any money on that product per se. He wrote it just to give it away free,
and I think
so people could have free encryption.
And I think it's open source.
Yeah, it is open source. PGP has been open source for ever and a day.
Which, ladies and gentlemen, if you want good encryption software, look for something that's open source and has a community that loves it. Then they'll know that the government doesn't have their paws into it because everybody can actually see the source code.
Yeah, and of course it can always be tweaked just enough to change any backdoor key into it or whatever it may be. It's the secret little dirty diaper in the NSA is that They literally have documents they can't decrypt no matter how hard or how many computers they throw at it.
That was what was it? It's there's a WikiLeaks guy. I don't remember his name. He said that
Snowden.
no, that was
Snowden.
no,
A
Snowden.
WikiLeaks guy.
Yeah, the WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
The WikiLeaks guy allegedly at one point released a huge encrypted.
Andreessen, I think is his name.
He released Julian Assange.
Oh, okay.
He released allegedly a huge encrypted file that was basically like, if I die, CIA, all your secrets get spilled, type of thing. I mean, apparently it was enough that it scared people off because nobody knew what was in it because nobody had the key.
Well, the amazing thing is that we say, imagine a light, all of this stuff that we've seen in movies, I'm also afraid sometimes actually is happening in reality. If the idea was, and as we well know, if somebody puts an idea in a movie that the bad guys haven't thought up yet, they'll co-opt that, like September the 11th, and gather up airplanes and fly them into buildings as weapons. It's all very scary. I mean, we've been over this many, many times. The Alien and Sedition Act during World War I, put forward by Woodrow Wilson. And, okay, basically, if you said anything about this country, anything against the United States during World War I, you could be arrested and jailed. Now, when you talk about encrypting, something that occurred to me is a huge issue that is always an issue, but it's just gotten ridiculous at this point, and that's your Eighth Amendment right to a not cruel and unfair punishment execution, or punishment if you are arrested and convicted. And in Oklahoma, you had a guy doing a chicken on the gurney for 47 minutes, and they pulled the curtain, and they don't know if they tried to resuscitate him, or they said they stopped the execution. They tried to stop killing him, and he finally died 45 minutes later on a gurney. And American pharmaceutical companies don't want to make the death penalty cocktail anymore. So it's outsourced to compounding farm. This is just getting bizarre.
Yeah.
Because we cannot effectively administer a death sentence in any state at this point.
It's just like
because the drug companies don't want to make the drugs to do it.
And then you have European countries who basically passed laws saying we will not export this drug to the United States. And even the electrocution, the electric chair, it can take 4 or 5 times of upstepping the voltage to kill somebody. I don't think there's anything even remotely
standard about electrocution. That's one of the reasons they got rid of it. We used to have the gas chamber in California,
oh, that's a horrible
which was
way to go.
cyanide and something else all dropped into acid. It filled up the room. But the problem of it is that it as we know with most drugs, it doesn't work the same on everybody.
And there's stories of them knocking on the glass, screaming. I mean, like PTSD level, people going, "Let me!" And it's horrifying.
Within the last 6 months. And within the last 6 weeks, and I'm going, it's to a certain extent, and we talked about this on election night. I'm okay with an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I think that. I also think to a certain extent that because of mandatory appeals and everything else, by the time one might get, have the sentence carried out in the state of California, the last person on death row in California died. Not in the gas chamber, but died of old age before they could be executed.
Right.
So it's a heck of a question in our society. And frankly, we can't seem to do it right because, the guy might be the worst father raper in the world, but, if we as his peers have convicted him and say, you're sentenced to death, we have an Eighth Amendment responsibility to do it in a speedy kind of way. And
Yeah,
that
you
might
would
be
hope.
cool
How,
and
how does
unfair.
Texas is like the state for executions.
I don't think they
How
care.
do they do it?
I mean, honestly, I bet I just think they just pull the switch and whatever happens, happens. I mean, I'll be
I
honest.
was just
I'm,
curious on how
No,
Texas does it.
Texas is lethal injection.
Okay, so have they been having problems?
I bet they probably have companies who make the drug though that are okay with it.
If they have, you don't know much about it.
I've never heard of a problem with their executions. Just
And
wondered.
they execute the greatest number of people of any state.
I'll be honest.
I
I'm,
think
I'm
we
as,
ought to go back to firing squad or the guillotine.
here's
Those
the-
two work really well.
So here's the thing. I'm as well. There's also the science of hanging, which, believe it or not, done right, is very fast. I just don't like
You can
executions.
have it's still the hanging thing has a physical quality to it that is just unfortunate.
I'll be honest. I'm conservative. I'm very conservative, and I hate executions. I don't think there's any safe. Was it safe or sane or unpainful way to do it? You're killing somebody, for crying out loud. I really don't see.
Well, they'll tell you this.
And as cruel as and twisted as this sounds, coming from me or coming from anybody, I have always felt that they should be public events. The unfortunate thing is that hucksters and what it could make quite of a deal out of it. But I think it makes a difference when a kid sees, if you do this, we're gonna do this. Okay, it ain't pretty. It's your life, and you're gonna lose it. I don't think that the death penalty as a deterrent works because it's so out of touch.
Then why don't we just make public spectacles out of it, like the movie The Running Man? If they can survive all these deadly events, then they live. But they get make it a real spectacle.
It's a decent look. It makes. I mean, some of the heinous criminals in our lifetime have been reduced. They just let them into the general population because, I think it was Dahmer.
Yeah.
Didn't and he lasted 7 seconds or something before the inmate population took care of the vermin. But this is a huge subject that I don't know if it's how it's ridden with your dad, but this is one that my entire lifetime talk about a reoccurring problem, and somehow we've lost the ability to painlessly or effectively. They postponed a execution, I do believe, in Texas that was supposed to happen last night because the guy has a birth defect.
I think it's time to pull an Escape from New York. Why don't we take over a small island or remove everybody from Manhattan, and just put all the criminals there, put a bunch of landmines and auto sentries and whatnot, and this, let them go at it.
Well, as that's a George Carlin idea. He wanted to take like Arizona, Utah, Nevada, and California, and each 4 states. Each one had their own kind of evil, awful criminal, and you incarcerated them in there. You let them run on the loose. You occasionally dropped in weapons and other things, and let them do one another and televise it.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the guy who bought weed or did something. I'm talking about the major hardcore criminals, like Supermax people.
What bothers me though about the whole thing? When you become a parent and you have a child and that child is murdered by an individual, I don't think there's probably a person that feels more strongly than that parent that this guy needs to be put down and put down now.
I'm not even a parent, and I think you should be put down and put down.
Then here's
now.
what you do:
Exactly.
give the person the handgun and say, "You do it." Instead of letting the state do the business, let the person, put up the gun to the brain pan and let him pull the trigger. Simple and easy.
I'm beginning to think that the firing squad might be the best way to do it.
It's worked for a couple hundred years pretty well,
No, I like my idea.
Utah. The last execution in Utah, and I can't remember the name of the guy that did it. You have a choice there. He chose the firing squad, and it worked very well.
No, I like my idea. Give the person, the victim, the handgun, or the surviving persons, let them choose and let them pull the trigger.
Yeah, but the thing of it is, it takes the vengeance of the public out of it. He did it at his own hand, okay? we do want we want some blood. That's what the death and I have always and rightly or wrongly, it has always been an issue with me. Does it accomplish what it sets out to do?
No.
On the other hand, I strongly feel that there are heinous crimes and there are evil people that commit evil acts in this world that probably shouldn't be around to get back into society. But, Charlie Manson's still alive. And
Yeah,
I ran into Charlie Manson with my friend Mike before Tate LaBianca and all that kind of stuff were out at his ranch out here in the valley. And this is a guy that I mean, I can control people, so I can read it coming. And this is a very evil guy. I mean, if there is evil in the world, it may very well be encapsulated in Charles Manson.
So let me ask you this then: Is a person that's a psychopath of some type, is that a mental illness? Are these people just mentally ill? And so
well, as you know, many sociopaths have been convicted and sentenced to murder, and some of them are executed, and some of them are.
Right. And I think that's what bothers me about any of this is that if we're going to go to execution, we need to make sure that every I is dotted, T is crossed 15, 20 times just to make sure, because I can't think of anything worse than executing the wrong person.
I think you're dreaming.
Our judicial
'cause it's not
system
that
and
possible.
our democracy, it kind of revolves around the guarantee that we're going to give you every opportunity to prove your innocence. Because the worst thing about a system like ours is if we kill a single innocent man.
Right.
And we do it rather often.
I don't think it's possible to 100% prove somebody's guilty unless you have videotape of him doing it. Because even DNA evidence isn't always,
Well, then we have a problem.
that's
Well,
the problem.
the problem of it is what's reliable. Any attorney,
Yeah.
especially a criminal attorney, will tell you that the most impeachable testimony is eyewitness testimony.
Yeah.
Because people see things differently,
Yeah,
or people are biased, and they see what they want to see. So you have to take eyewitness testimony with a grain of salt. You really have to see who the person is to evaluate that. It's not easy to justify taking someone's life, and in that initiative that was on the California ballot. If you remember, they were either voting for the death penalty or
Right,
not
right.
the death penalty.
Right.
And remember, we had the conversation about that. I was agonizing over that because what it costs us to incarcerate a capital offense death penalty inmate is somewhere, I think, in the area of $100,000 a year. And after their conviction, with the mandatory appeals, it is at least 9 years. So we're basically looking at $1 million baby the moment we convict them.
Right.
You just put them in general pop. Well, I guess to change subjects a little bit, not exactly a more cheery subject, honestly.
This could go on for quite a while.
The California public schools districts could face potential cutbacks if the state officials move forward with a plan to bail out the retirement fund for teachers, officials, and educators. Under a proposal released last week by Governor Jerry Brown, more money will flow into California's state teachers' retirement system to begin closing an estimated $74 billion. That's billion with a B shortfall. It has the school districts reeling in terms of how to grapple with this unanticipated expense in the coming school year, throwing a major wrench into everything. California's systems will still oversee the fund rise, but not as much as they'd planning over the several years of reductions. Under the governor's plan, the pension contributions from school districts will rise to 9.5% of payroll from the current 8.25%. This will increase to 19.1% over 7 years. In other words, for a teacher who earned $50,000 a year, a district would have to set aside an additional $9,550 annually.
Correct. And part of the where the craziness comes here is the CalSTRS, the California Teachers Retirement System, is one of the most successful retirement systems in the country. In other words, its return on investment, even during the recession, CalSTRS was doing really well. Where you run into the problem is a bunch of smart guys didn't realize that a bunch of people were going to retire, called baby boomers, all at the same time.
Yeah. And we have the same problem.
That's why they're underfunded.
Yeah, and we have this problem in almost every municipality, in city government and county government. They have the same problem.
Was during the Clinton years when everything were fat and good, everybody made sure they had a fat ass retirement plan in place.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to retire at 90%.
Yeah.
That's not what retirement is about, 90%.
It was 90% at 50.
Well, and here's the thing. And granted, having done the job, teachers deserve anything they can get and anything that's given them for the most part, because they do not have an easy job. It's about as uneasy a job as you're ever going to find. And I don't know that they're affecting it well. The way I understand this is Brown will make a contribution of $425 million to CalSTRS, and then they will appropriately, the districts are going to have to take more and more. It's a matching thing. I know that when I was substitute teaching, I had $50 a day put away in the retirement fund, and the school paid for it. Plus, they paid me $30 an hour. So that's why I couldn't complain financially too much about what they were doing, because over a 5-year period, I ended up with $7,000 gross and $5,000 net when I took my money out of there. I wish I could have left it, but it's better used in my hand right now than it is there. It's everybody, like Rob said, it's all retirement funds. Somehow they didn't, some that really got injured by the recession are having to tread some heavy water and get back into business. But CalSTRS, the problem with me is that for years they've just been beating their chest on how well they've done on their investments and stuff. And I know somebody that worked for them 10 years ago. And he said to me, they're underfunded.
And there's the article I'm reading is from the LA Times, but the most there's more interesting parts about it. Says we have made commitments to the community. Everyone has a sense of we want more, not less, and now we have to decide what to cut. We will lose credibility. All districts would have to reduce their budget before July 1st, which is the start of the new budget year. The LI Unified would have to forfeit about 10% of its increased funding for the next year. Some districts would surrender a much higher percentage. Brown acted and estimated the teachers' retirement system will run out of money in 30 years. The cost of benefits to retirees has far outpaced contributions to the fund investment returns on the pension holdings.
And why is that? It's because we're living longer. They didn't expect us to be able to live into our 80s and 90s as a regular situation.
Really, and Rob, you and I know this, that the 70s are the new 60s.
Yeah.
You're not getting old until 70. We're active, we're vibrant, we're totally involved all the way through our 60s. Those that decide to bump out, unless you're the Samuel High class of 69, that's another story altogether.
I think the other thing...
We just as a side note, we finally found out how much it's going to cost to go to our reunion.
Oh.
$119.50 a head.
Well, better you than me, buddy.
Well, I'm
not going.
I also think the other thing is there's less people after the baby boomers. If all the baby boomers retire, I think for every 10 people, there's like 3 working. So there's a lot less money going into the system to go out to the boomers, and that's going to hurt. The
ratio isn't quite that bad, and actually we've had post-war baby booms, not to the level of the 50s baby boom, but post-Vietnam. We have been in Afghanistan for 10 years.
But there's going to be a shortfall in people. It's not quite 10 out of 3, but it's still enough that it might cause more financial issues.
Well, you're right, because it's dependent on you younger guys to keep working and putting in so that you can fund us old guys and keep
well,
keep
and
us
to get
going.
back- and to get back to-
That's why Paul Ryan and people call Social Security a Ponzi scheme. It's not.
It's not a Ponzi scheme, but
it's turning into one.
Hopefully it doesn't stay
But see,
underfunded.
well,
That's the problem.
Here's the thing.
Well, in the case of Social Security, hopefully the government stops borrowing against it and pays it back what it borrowed.
Would be
Well,
nice.
to get back to a comment that John said earlier, it's kind of had to put money in when you don't have, a job.
No,
and it also, I know
you're
more
absolutely
people in my generation. Matter of fact, I know a lot of us don't care about Social Security, don't want to pay it because it won't be around for us. And so we're like, we've got to pay all this, and it's not going to do jack for us because
I don't know that you're correct, and I don't know where you're assuming it's not going to be there.
Because I've grown up my entire life. You listen to the news, you read newspapers, everywhere they say it's going to run out of me at this point. The Democrats say it's going to money at this point, and Republicans say at this point, let's do this, and they all take money from it. I don't expect to get Social Security. I actually respect them to say, okay, 75 is the new retirement age. I actually expect the government to screw us over, and most of my generation is going to die at their desk or being greeters at Walmart because the bastards in Congress don't really give a flying fuck about anybody but lining their pockets.
Well, but our generation's already greeters at Walmart. It's already happened, May. And
yes, but
the
I expect
safety
it to
net
get worse.
isn't there.
I expect
And
it
I'm
to
not
get
happy
worse.
about it. And it's more involved with government borrowing against borrowing the people's money to fund the people's business, which unfortunately usually was some kind of a fucking war.
I
agree.
Yeah. Or special projects like, I don't know, say a computer program for one of the DMV or whatnot that spent billions of dollars on that they threw away because it doesn't work like advertised. If there's anything that wastes...
No, it didn't even work like advertised. It didn't even work.
Didn't even
See,
work.
government...
How is government... I'm going to interrupt.
No, I'm cutting you off.
Okay. No, because this bugs me. How does government put out an RFP, request for proposal, for a company to write a particular piece of software that's supposed to work throughout the whole state? They pay them $1 billion+ for this. This piece of software never worked from day one, yet it's okay.
See, because I think unlike...
There was no recourse. The company said...
Folks, this was 20 years ago or more that this happened.
It's like the Bay Bridge. I think unlike private business, where you have to have, you either do what advertised or pay a penalty. There's no penalty in government. There's nobody holding the feet to the fire saying, this didn't work, you're fired, or give me a good reason why I shouldn't terminate you, because the system's rigged, because it costs so much money.
It's just like the VA and the guy they fired last week who had already retired and had a replacement already named for him. But we're going to throw you a sacrificial lamb. This guy's leaving now. It goes back to what I've said a billion times on this is our 51st week. I
was going to say, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, the least that we should worry, the least important thing in education, having just been in it and thinking about not really, is that it's not getting the job done. The least important thing is the teacher's retirement. Because apparently either the curriculum is wrong, the teachers are wrong, the system is wrong, because it ain't working. We have a bunch of uneducated, uninformed, unskilled people out there that supposedly have a high school diploma.
I honestly,
let alone what you get when you remedialize in junior college to go to a 4-year university. And I know the 4-year university I went to is a joke.
Right.
We've had
this whole argument.
A couple of comments is the VA is to help the poor schmucks who actually volunteered to defend our freedom, and we're screwing them left and right because it's, I don't know, we're making money. We want bonuses, so we're hurting people's
Well,
lives.
Now, on the other hand, Jonathan, you can say that. And I have a friend that I always felt was the most well-adjusted Vietnam vet I had ever run into, considering that he had 2 Vietnam medals, which meant he put his life on the line and went in and got people out. And my friend was fine. I thought he was a great guy. He volunteered since he's been retired at the VA. And the people of the VA said, no, you need to apply for benefits under PTSD. And so we applied for PTSD, and they said, oh, yeah, you have PTSD. And then they brought him in for further psychological interviews, where I brought his service records in. And when they looked at his service records, they kind of went, and my friend has been declared long-term unemployable. And when you're long-term unemployable, he now receives $3,500 a month from the VA.
Damn.
He has no medical expenses. He no longer has to pay property tax. He no longer has to pay registration on his automobiles.
Can he put me on his will?
You know what? You know what he can't have?
Guns.
Firearms. He lost his right to own a firearm
By being long-term unemployable?
by being PSTD. Any stress-related case of a vet under that situation, the government has deemed them a danger to society, so they can no longer own firearms.
I just
No, they ought to tell you. They ought to tell you when you enlist that there's a possibility that you'll lose your Second Amendment rights because of what we put you through.
Yeah. And your first, and your fourth.
It just seems
and the third.
really crappy that you have
And
these people that are trying to defend our freedoms or in war, justifiably or not, and they're getting screwed. And then you have a generation full of people who we're telling them going to college is your only solution, instead of finding areas that they'll actually be beneficial in for themselves, whether you're a carpenter, plumber, electrician.
Right.
The problem is we say blue-collar jobs aren't worth it, and the problem is there's jobs lined up for people. The problem is there's no people for the jobs.
Yeah.
And we're screwing my generation and the generation after me and the one after that and the one after that, because we keep telling them it's good to get $400,000 in debt and a master's degree that you won't use because you'll be flipping hamburgers at McDonald's because there's no jobs for you.
Well, yes and no. The problem is, the toughest thing about education is, what do you teach them? And right now, what do you teach them? When I was in the educational system, I was committed to doing one thing, and that's teaching people problem-solving skills.
Well,
Is it plugged in? Is it turned on? Let's ask the first 2 questions. Then we'll worry about whether the motor, you know what I mean?
I was a special
and
case
people
in
don't
school.
have problem-solving solutions.
I was a special case in school. I was part of something called the resource program. I was a slow learner. So they were able to take tests and see, okay, this is where he needs help. This is where he's good at. And the problem is there just doesn't be, and this is my personal opinion, and I don't have kids, so I don't 100% know. I actually think tests, the standardized testing, I do think is a little bull, because it seems like I've heard that you're just teaching to the test. You're not actually teaching the kids what they need, like problem solving, mathematics, teaching them
Here's
to
the
think for
problem
themselves.
is while you're in the midst of trying to teach somebody something, then you have to teach them the test, because it rules the school for a while and disrupts. The basic problem is that we're not teaching people skills that have value.
Well, and blue collar. Let me get this in for a
well,
minute. I've been waiting. You've been
But
going
no,
on
just
for
one second. I think, but the problem is, I think we're not teaching them. We're devaluing those skills.
Yeah, well, that was my point. We have turned our nose up at the blue collar workers for some unknown reason. The mechanics, the plumbers, the electricians, the carpenters, the roofers, all these guys, and that, heaven forbids, I don't want my kid to be a carpenter. No,
Yeah,
I want him to go to school.
Who's going to build your house?
Exactly.
Who clogs the drain?
But damn,
So,
some carpenters make
that doesn't mean you're stupid.
No.
Or it doesn't mean that you're less intelligent. I was talking to somebody the other day. I had a client when I was in the insurance business, and he had a master's degree from Indiana University in medieval history.
Yeah,
He
a
was
lot of
also
good
a
that did him.
millionaire. You know
Well-
how he made the $1 million? Making wood kitchen cabinet doors.
Yeah, and
You can make some good
one.
money. in
I've made the
carpentry.
statement before. The smartest man I've ever known in my life was my father. He had a high school education, that's all he had. But this man had a knowledge of geography, of politics, of just about any topic you wanted to bring up. And he had a Class A knowledge of all of these things. He was an electrician. Okay, he worked his butt off as an electrician. And to be looked down to because you have a trade and not a college degree is a disgrace to many of the people in this country.
Well, you know, and it occurs to me, you know, all the time I spend with drag racers, and these guys are the heart and soul of blue collar.
Right,
I mean, they're mechanics,
right.
they're oil field workers, they're general contractors, they're carpenters, they're
Work
and
hard, play hard.
and the thing of it is that is part of the schism in this country between. I mean, you know, I finished college when I was 55 years old, so I'm happy I finished college. But is it? You know, and we've made this statement before. Ever since I got my bachelor's degree, I haven't had a full-time job.
Yeah.
And maybe that's but these guys work hard, and I didn't have a father that had skills. My dad made money, and he paid people to do things, and he didn't care about knowing how to nail things together and that kind of stuff. And my brother and I paid for it dearly.
Yeah, no, I know. You know, it's like we've talked about the things that I learned from my father. The things I'm able to do without even thinking twice about it. Sometimes even surprises myself. You know, and I like hands-on stuff. You know, and we just got to figure out. First of all, there's so many problems going on in this country, and this is just one more example of it. And to finish up on the Social Security situation, and the PERS and the STIRS and all these things, when you have a situation with like California PERS and law enforcement, or one of the most powerful unions is the California Correctional Officers Union, where they've worked out a pension that literally is 90% at age 50. You know, these guys get 90% of what they finally made at their last year, their highest amount that they made, and at 50 they can retire out and have that for all the rest of their lives.
Plus medical benefits. Probably.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You get your full medical benefits and everything. Nobody knows how the hell they're going to continue to pay for this.
I have. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
It's just like,
and let me just interject, and I don't mean to cut you off, Jonathan, but I'll just give you an example. This is all the way back to the 70s and 80s. I'm selling life insurance, and it's no longer life insurance like you used to. It's not whole life insurance or term insurance. You now have universal life. You have universal variable life. You have all these products that now actually have the insured assuming some of the risk on the financial side. And I'd walk in and see proposals for these interest-sensitive life insurance policies with 14 and 15% earnings projected for a lifetime.
yeah, yeah.
You both you know who Mike Rowe is, right?
Yes, of
The
course.
dirty jobs
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
He's one of these few people I've heard who's really pushing for blue collar jobs. And there's a quote I
We
was looking for.
I just lost your audio.
Oh, okay.
Are you there? Well, there's Mike Rowe.
Well, reboot.
Mike Rowe had a comment.
We're going to hang up on you. Force you to reboot. Okay, go ahead.
Mike Rowe. Sorry, second, ladies.
We're almost done anyway here.
Mike Rowe had a comment that I was looking for that I actually thought would be apropos to what we were just talking about, and here it is. There's a real disconnect in the way that we educate vis-a-vis the opportunities that are available. You have right now about 3 million jobs that can't be filled. And the article says, and Mike Rowe's talking about job openings in traditional jobs ranging from construction to welding to plumbing. Jobs that typically parents don't sit down with their kids and say, look, if all goes well, this is what we're going to do. And at the end of the note, the person who wrote this article said, at one point, Rowe says the college costs have risen over 500%, the rate of inflation. According to the Department of Labor, college tuition costs have increased over 500% in the nominal dollars since 1985, not 500% the rate of inflation. People are getting cost out.
Well,
It's
Oh,
You're
yeah.
stuck
No,
for the
no,
rest
it's
of your-
called discrimination by the price mechanism.
right.
and it's
Pure
happening
and
to
simple.
and it's happening to everybody. It's happening to people who are poor. The only people who can afford the ridiculous money college are is like the 1%.
You talk to anybody like John and some of the others that have gone for their master's degrees. Heaven forbid you go to medical school and you don't get out until your 30s and you have $1 million in school loans to pay. Good luck to you on that.
But that's going to be a
And
sword of
that's why-
Damocles that'll never
that's why,
leave you.
Since they're owing Big Pharma, when Big Pharma comes out with a product, and
Right.
then they kind of because this is the problem now that I see, that do we let the corporatocracy, where these 3,000 jobs are, that there's nobody, do you let them tell the educational system what they need in the way of workers so they can prepare people?
You would hope so. You would hope that
hope so.
schools would be there to fulfill that. But you know what? We've reached our hour. Actually, we're a little over. My goodness, it went really quick. And I thought we had some great things to talk about. And I think we're going to need to continue to do that. So listen, for John Majasic, John Charney, and Rob Charney, this Old Guy Tech TV, Opinion versus Opinion. We'll see you next week.